It's Saturday the 15th, and we are gonna continue Deadly Premonition. Last time we went to the police station and we met Thomas, and then we went over the investigation details with George and Emily. And this time we're gonna drive to the hospital to do the autopsy, and hopefully we'll get to do a little more than like 5-10 minutes of gameplay. Hopefully. Let's see.
Agent Morgan, get us there quickly, but drive within the speed limit. Just because you have a badge doesn't mean you can drive like a maniac.
George, what are you, his mother?
And that was chapter 3. Which was very meaty and very good, and I liked it a lot. We pick up from the parking lot outside the police station and we get in the car with George and Emily, and then we start driving to the hospital. This is also the point where the game introduces one of the most interesting mechanics overall, and that mechanic is that during a drive you can press A and then a random conversation will initiate.
Agent Morgan, I can't help noticing you prefer to work alone.
If there is someone in the car, like there is here, they will talk to York and he'll talk back to them, and they'll share details about their lives and maybe even get in a little bit of a fight. And if he's just alone, he'll talk movie trivia with Zack. On this drive here, we learn that the town used to be the home to a large lumber mill, and that there were apparently a lot more people living here back then, which is also why the hospital we're gonna go to is very huge and apparently also kind of well staffed, it seems. And we also learned that, you know, George has certain opinions about women, which will be very ironic later.
That's a pretty big hospital. I guess they wanted to be ready for town-wide food poisoning. As
we arrive at the hospital, we go to the front desk, and then we are greeted by freckly Fiona, who is the hospital's receptionist, and she's very cheery.
Hello, Sheriff.
And the funny thing about her is that she's reading a book, and the book is a reference to Twin Peaks, which is, you know, kind of funny. She doesn't know where the doctor is, except that she thinks that he is in the computer room. So we go to the computer room, and he's actually not there, but there is a puzzle left behind. It's a chess puzzle, and I can never remember the solution, so I looked it up in advance, and then I just inputted the numbers, which then gave us a key card. And Georgie wasn't really super happy about the doctor playing games with them.
More games. I'm going to get Fiona to call Usha up here right now.
But York, he liked it because he's York. I hope you're already getting a feeling for that.
Then it's time to meet the mischievous architect of this little game.
And Emily, she's just she's just along for the ride.
Another code?
Emily will be the straight man in the story, at least in the main story. She will have some fun side stuff to her character, but in the main story, she'll be the straight man. She will be just there, shooting straight, doing straight things, and they have a really good dynamic, these three.
Agent York isn't accustomed to the town yet. Give him a little slack. Well then, Agent York, let's get going.
Sure, sounds good.
We get the card, and then we learn that Usha is in the morgue. So we go to the morgue, and then we start the autopsy of Anna Graham.
From the onset of rigor mortis, the stiffening of the muscles, the time of death is estimated to be between 20 and 2200 hours.
We learn that Anna was drugged, and then her chest was cut up, and she was actually very much alive when her chest was cut up. You know, we saw her like with an open chest cavity in the beginning of the game. And we also learn that the seats that York is investigating in all his other cases, those seats have also appeared here. And we also learn that she was killed during a rainstorm, but that she was killed inside, and that her body wasn't moved to the forest until after the rainstorm, which we learned from Emily that was after 1 a.m. So that's pretty interesting. And then, as the autopsy concludes, Yorkie steps outside to have a cigarette because, you know, you can apparently do that in 2010's America. And right as he steps outside, the overworld's other world sort of like appears, and he's like, "Whoa, shit, things are happening again, Zack."
Zack, they're here.
And then we are like thrust into the other world, red world, demon world version of the hospital, and we have to get our asses out. But we are in luck because we're not completely alone. Anna's like ghost thing, she's helping us and she's guiding us where we need to go. There are these cutscenes where we see her like run past a window, and that will tell us, the player, to go in that direction that she's going, and that's really clever, and I like that a lot. And you know, we follow her and we dodge a bunch of zombies and we hack them with a knife, because apparently hacking with a knife is like way better than using a gun. And the way I usually play it is that I run past as many enemies as I can, because there's not a whole lot of reward to actually killing them, and I only kill the ones that are standing like in front of a door or are in a room where there's some sort of puzzle that I need to figure out, and I need to, you know, have a few moments to figure it out, so I need to kill the zombie to give me a little bit of calm and headspace to do that. After we fight some shotgun zombies, we are then transported back to the actual world, and we are now in the lobby all of a sudden, and we are still like attempting to light our cigarette. What that tells me is that while we are in the red world, we don't exist in the physical world, and not that much time seems to pass in the physical world while we are in the red world. We were probably in the red world for about 15 minutes, and in those 15 minutes, in the real world, York raised his cigarette up. And while those 15 minutes pass, the only thing that York like manages to do in the real world is actually pick up his lighter and, you know, start to light the cigarette. So 15 minutes in the red world is like, I don't know, 15 seconds maybe in the real world. So that's interesting. And as we're back in the lobby, we are then greeted by this mysterious man who is wearing a gas mask and is in a wheelchair, who owns the entire town. And he's speaking in riddles, or rather, he's not speaking. He talks by whispering to like this flamboyant little man, who's actually not little, he's very tall. And then the tall man will speak in a riddle followed by, "So says Mr. Stewart."
Mr. Francis York Morgan, haste won't lead you to what you seek. Keep your eyes focused on your footing as we speak. So says Mr. Stewart.
And he gives us some cryptic hints that will make sense later. And then we're kind of done. The chapter concludes and it's very good. The case is interesting because we know it's not just that some lady was hacked to bits and then she was, you know, strung up on a tree and that's that. No, there's like a whole ritualistic thing. I mean, first off, she was very dolled up. She had fake nails on and she was wearing a very pretty red dress. And it was not like a young person party dress, it was a long dress. So she was seemingly going to something a little fancy. And she was apparently drugged, but probably drugged willingly, because as I mentioned earlier, she didn't struggle while her like chest was cut off. And we also learned that her tongue was bitten off during all of this, which is like super fucking weird. And then there's of course the seats, which we know from the intro is kind of linked to some case that's happening all over the place, all over the US, where these psychotic killers are, you know, killing and stuff. So that's interesting, and that's really the sort of like mystery meat and potatoes is this whole Anna case, and figuring out how she got murdered and why she got murdered and all that, and that's like really juicy, and that narrative, that's sort of fiction behind that. It's like it's very much like Silence of the Lamb, you know, Red Dragon, Hannibal, all that. That's very cool, and it also reminds me a lot of True Detective, which is kind of ironic because True Detective hadn't come out yet, and then Deadly Premonition 2 is straight up just a True Detective ripoff. So that's cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I hope that the chapters from here on out are gonna be mostly longer than the 5 to 10 minute chapters we have had, you know, previous to this one. But I guess we'll see.